This isn't just a disagreement between two public officials. It is a window into how fragile the rule of law becomes when those in power stop respecting the boundaries placed on them by the Constitution. Senator Chris Murphy wasn't asking trick questions, and he wasn't trying to score political points. He was trying to pin down something so fundamentally important that the entire American system depends on it. Does the government believe it has the right to punish people for political speech? And will the government obey the Supreme Court, even when it doesn't like the outcome? These are not small questions. These are the questions that determine whether a country remains a democracy or drifts toward authoritarianism. And the troubling part of this exchange is not just what Secretary Kristi Noem said, it's what she refused to say. Murphy began by talking about AI talent leaving the U.S., and that may seem unrelated, but it's not. People with extraordinary skills, the kind of people who fuel innovation, economic growth, and transformative industries, are paying attention to how America treats immigrants, visa holders, and foreign-born workers. When highly trained individuals do not believe the United States can guarantee basic constitutional protections, they choose other countries. That's not an immigration story. That's an economic competitiveness story. It's a national security story. And it's a story about trust. Trust that the rules apply equally, that speaking your mind won't get you punished, that constitutional protections mean something. So when Murphy asked the secretary if a legal permanent resident, someone with a green card, someone who may have lived here for decades, can be detained or deported for expressing a political opinion, he was not asking a hypothetical. He was asking whether our government still recognizes free speech as a universal right, not a conditional privilege. Her inability to simply say, no, that would be unconstitutional, is not a small oversight. It signals an administration that cannot or will not publicly commit to the most fundamental of American freedoms. Then we get to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a name that might not be familiar to viewers, but whose case embodies one of the oldest and most important principles in our system. When the Supreme Court issues a ruling, the executive branch must follow it. You don't have to like the ruling. You don't have to agree with it. But you do have to obey it. That's how checks and balances work. But Secretary Noem refused, again and again, to acknowledge what the Supreme Court decision actually requires. Instead, she repeated labels meant to justify defiance, calling him a terrorist, a smuggler, a wife-beater. These accusations, whether true or not, don't change the central fact. The court ruled. The government must comply. The moment a president or a cabinet secretary believes they can override a Supreme Court decision simply by attacking someone's character, we have crossed into very dangerous territory. Because here's what many people don't realize. The rule of law protects the unpopular, the disliked, the controversial. The Constitution does not exist to make life easier for the government. It exists to restrict the government, to restrain the government, to prevent arbitrary power. When the executive branch decides that some people are too bad or too politically inconvenient to deserve constitutional protections, it never stops with that one person. There is always a next category, a next exception, a next group to be stripped of rights. That's how erosion happens. Murphy also said something deeply important. Just because the administration hasn't yet punished political speech doesn't mean they believe they can't. That's why he pushed so hard. In a healthy democracy, it should be the easiest answer in government. No, we cannot imprison or deport people for their opinions. That answer should come instantly, firmly, without hesitation. The fact that it didn't is the real alarm. And the Garcia case exposes something structural. If the administration can ignore a Supreme Court ruling in this case, what stops them from ignoring future rulings? What happens when the next decision they don't like involves reproductive rights, voting rights, free speech, environmental protections, or marriage equality? The judiciary doesn't enforce itself. It relies on the executive branch to honor its decisions. When a cabinet secretary shrugs off that responsibility, the entire system starts to wobble. This is why Democrats fight so hard for the rule of law. Not because of one case, not because of one administration, but because once you normalize the idea that the government can sidestep the courts or punish speech, the damage is irreversible. Democracies don't collapse all at once. They erode slowly, quietly, decision by decision, until the guardrails are gone and no one noticed when the final one fell. Senator Murphy's questioning wasn't about Garcia alone. It was about every immigrant, every student, every worker, every green card holder who wonders whether their voice is safe. It was about AI researchers deciding whether America is still the place where ideas can flourish without fear. It was about reaffirming that this country is supposed to be governed by laws, not by personal anger or political vendettas. And it was a reminder that constitutional rights matter most when the government finds them inconvenient. If you're watching this right now, don't look away. This exchange tells you exactly why voting matters, why paying attention matters, why protecting checks and balances matters. If we want a country where free speech is real, where immigrants are treated with dignity, where courts hold power accountable, and where the Constitution isn't optional, then we have to demand leadership that respects the system, not leaders who test the limits of how far they can bend it. The future of our democracy depends on citizens who understand these issues, who stay engaged, and who refuse to allow rights to be treated as political bargaining chips. So stay informed, share this,
Talk about it.
and vote for leaders who believe in the America our founders envisioned, a nation where laws apply to everyone, especially those in power. That's how we protect our democracy. That's how we protect each other. And that's how we shape the future of this country.